firmly believe that love and kindness are really the root of the solution to most of the things going wrong. In my work with people as a leader, as an educator, as a professional therapist, what I have found is that being good to people opens the door to amazing things, amazing change, transformation, healing, trust, inspiration. And so that's what I try to live out.
Welcome to Oxygen for Educators. This is Michele Kinder. I'm one of your hosts. We're going to be looking at the hard truth that students need more, and simultaneously the adults in the building are feeling under-resourced and overextended. Join us as we elevate the voices of people across the country doing this work. We'll be looking at anxieties, overwhelm, burnout, joy, commitment, and everything in between. We're glad you're here. This space is for you. Hi, Chris.
Yes. Hi, Michele. How are you?
I'm great, and I'm excited to be with everyone today and for them to get to know Kem Edwards. So tell them what they're up for. In for.
Okay.
Wait, what is it? Is it up for or in for?
Whichever you want.
Are you in? Here's what you're in for. Are you up for it?
There you go. There you go.
Oh, no, this is going to be rough.
This is one of my very favorite interviews that you've done. I'm not going to lie. I was crying and grinning by about the third minute. So I hope that everybody's excited. Kem Edwards has been a teacher, a counselor, and an administrator. She was actually the first head counselor at Mesquite ISD, and went on to be nationally recognized for the program that she built. She's absolutely amazing. She's going to talk to us about why she left that role. Appreciated her authenticity around that. And she is now a therapist, practicing therapist and speaker. She's going to be a keynote speaker at Texas's Stronger Connections conference this summer. And I'm so excited to hear her personal story when she does that speech now. I also wanted to mention that she's a Swiftie, and she forgot to mention that her walk-up song would be "Are You Ready for It?" So I offered to drop that in her intro. And what she does not know is I hope we add to her resume that she's on our Oxygen for Educators show that plays in campuses across the country that is not out yet, but will be coming, because I thought she was just remarkable. And I also want her to know that I'm in line to be her new best friend.
Oh, yes. Kem is one of those people in the world whose like depth and wisdom is unmatched. But then you pair that with her disarming humor, and she's self-deprecating and just lovely, lives what she says, all the things. I'm in her fandom with you, and so excited for people to get to know her today.
Let's let them listen.
Awesome. Okay, Kem, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so happy to see you in this context, and am delighted to know that more people are going to get to peek behind the curtain and hear your thinking and just soak up your wisdom in the way that I've been able to over the years. So thank you for your time.
No, I'm so honored to be here. So thank you for having me.
Yay. Well, I would love to start by giving people some context for your perspective. So tell us whatever you want about how you got to this point, so that can be the lens through which everybody knows you're speaking from.
Okay, so I'm going to start with the professional lens, which is I retired from public education in 2023. In my time as a public educator, I was a teacher and then a school counselor, and then I went to administration where I did some work with career and tech, and then became the director of counseling in Mesquite. I was the first director of counseling in Mesquite ISD, and we were among one of the probably last large urban school districts to have a director of counseling. And so when we came into this, I'd been there for a really long time, and I always say we because the counselors and I came into this together. It was, it was an adventure. Essentially what we did was, the first thing we did was just say, what's your biggest struggle, right? Like, what's going on? And even then in 2015, so that was way before COVID or any of that, behaviors and mental health concerns were the big thing. Mm-hmm. And so we started to look at that through the lens of how do we, as a limited resource of school counselors, one for 5 to 900 elementary age kids, or 5 or 6 for 3,000 high school kids, how do we address broadly the things that are going on? And so that took us down the path of social emotional learning. It connected us with Momentous, and we kind of self-built from there. We would go to trainings, and then we would train each other. We developed our own model of SEL. And so through all of that, I learned a lot about the brain, about kids and how they develop, about mental health. And then I kind of looked at that through the lens of my personal experiences, right? I was the target audience for school counselors in the 80s. Only nobody talked to their school counselor in the 80s, right? I met my school counselor literally one time after I graduated. And so, but I started to look at that, what made it great and where we could improve. And it kind of all boiled down to relationships, right? And since I've retired, the work I have done has been a lot of, trauma-informed practices for educators, trauma-informed practices for leadership. But the turn it has taken post-lockdown is that the same issues, concerns, emotional things coming up for kids are also now present in the lives of adults. Not just present, but very, very visible, very tangible, and very much a part of the workplace. And so when we think about those things, we think about grown-ups and kids and how do we help them. And I know that's a long answer, but that's kind of where I've landed. So now I'm a private practice therapist, and I do this sometimes. Mm-hmm. And so what I spend most of my time thinking about is just relationships and people and the things that they struggle with. And from that, I've kind of formulated my own way of seeing the world, of viewing how we address these vast, ever-growing, ever-evolving issues, and just trying to be a part of the solution.
Mm. What is that way? And let's hear the unplugged version.
The unplugged version of the Kem Edwards way?
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I sent you this text the other night. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna share that. I was talking to my husband. I do therapy, I do supervision, and I do this. And so I spend a lot of time in this world talking to people in large groups and one-on-one about the things that are going on in people's lives. And then my husband and I, we talk a lot about it, right? Systemically and otherwise. And I had this 27-year-old young woman who has been through hell, and she reminds me a lot of me. And you get that sometimes when you're a mental health professional or an educator, right? You look at a kid and you go, oh, hey, hi, there I am. Yeah. How did that happen? And I've been with her probably about 2 years now, and we had paused. We'd paused for about a year. And she said, when we paused, I said, we have more work to do, but we don't have to do it right now. It'll creep in, and you'll know it when you see it, and you'll know it's time. And so she came back to me and said, you said this, and I didn't believe you, but it was true. And so we were just having a conversation, and I said, do you want to go every week? Do you want to go every other? And she said, I'd rather go every other, but I trust you if you say I need to go every week. And I said, you know what? You're doing great. Like, you're very stable. You're just struggling. So let's do every other. And she started to cry, and she said, oh, it just makes me feel so good for you to say that I'm okay. Mm. And we said some other stuff. And then as we were signing off, I looked at her and I said, I'm very proud of you. And I like to practice a lot of what I call mama therapy with people. I've been a young adult and a kid desperately seeking mom. And I know it when I see it. And I firmly believe that love and kindness are really the root of the solution to most of the things going wrong. And so I try to give that out. And so I said that, and she cried a little more, and she said, thank you. And we signed off. And I went and I was telling my husband about it. And I said, I know a lot of stuff. I have a lot of training. I've got a lot of experience. My very best thing is loving people well. That's my very best thing. And I don't say that with arrogance. I say that with gratitude and humility. Like, wow, what a gift to go. I'm really good at being good to people. And in my work with people as a leader, as an educator, as a professional therapist, what I have found is that being good to people opens the door to amazing things, amazing change, transformation, healing, trust, inspiration. And so that's what I try to live out every day is I just want to be good to people, and I want them to leave feeling good when they've been with me, feeling better, but also knowing that that's what they can expect from me every single time.
When I think about just how overwhelmed and under-resourced so many people are in education right now, and the level of medicine, just being present to other people, being good to other people, connecting, seeing.
Yeah.
And that's something we can all do.
Yes.
It feels like true oxygen for educators, to coin a phrase. In terms of like, if you aren't sure what to do, here's what to do. Drop back into that very basic capacity of just being with the student, the coworker, the parent.
Yes. And being with them, but for me, it's making sure they know I'm so glad to be with you during this time. When I go to Mesquite, I go every couple of weeks. I'll go because I see a kiddo over there, and I always make it a point to go say hello to everybody that I can find, and I just give them the biggest hug, and I'm just so glad to see them. I mean, it's genuine because I miss these people. I worked with them for a lot of my life, but there's some intention when I go to a meeting, when I'm with those people, of I'm going to go make eye contact with every person that I have the time to do so and give them a hug. And I think it's because we live in such a busy, busy world, and everything we have to do is so important. And it really, really is important. Like, we're talking about keeping people alive here, right? Yeah. We're talking about Maslow stuff. But sometimes I really believe that we forget about the human beings involved in this very important work. And so just be a human, right? Yeah. To give and receive kindness, just to be real, right?
Yeah. Goes a long way.
I feel like if you forget about that human piece, that it becomes checking a box. And so, yeah, you're going to follow the protocol, and you're going to prevent some things, and you're going to do some good work, but you're going to miss the magic of the connection.
Yeah. You said something else, another thread I want to kind of pull at, when you described the person in front of you saying, it makes me feel so good that you think I'm okay. And I just was thinking about sort of the collective trauma of the last however many years.
Right.
And how many educators are walking around every day doing their things, checking all the boxes, but a little trapped in a narrative of, am I okay? Because we've all experienced a significant collective trauma. What is it that you would say to the educators out there that really resonate with that? Oh my gosh, I'm not sure I'm okay, and how good it feels to have a sense of like, oh, what I'm experiencing is actually normal, and I am okay, and I will get through this, ...
I mean, I used to say this to my counselors when we would talk about kids and families, and I live by this. The first thing I would say to anybody is, you're not crazy. This really has been incredibly hard. And just be mutual in that and authentic about that. It has, these last, 5 years in particular, have been really, really tough years. I want you to know, I want to acknowledge you. I want you to know I see how hard you're working. I want you to know I know how hard it's been, and I want you to know that your best is good enough, because along with the checking the boxes and doing all the things and being accessed and under-resourced comes the, no matter what I do, it's never going to be enough. And that is a hard truth. But the way things are going right now, there is so much need, so much stuff going on, that we really are just doing the best we can do to meet as many needs and to take care of as many people as possible. So I want you to know that you're doing everything you can do, and I see you, and that is enough, even though it's never going to feel like enough. Best is best, right? Mm-hmm. The best you can do is the best you can do.
Can you speak to how the toll it took on you to be in a role where no matter how exceptional you were not even going to chip away at the huge needs, what toll that took on you, and then how you learned to navigate that in a way that didn't compromise your own health and mental health?
I wish I could say I learned it before I compromised my mental health and my physical health, but I did not. And so, we were so proud of the work we were doing in Mesquite. We were becoming leaders across the state in terms of how this can look in large urban school districts in terms of mental health supports and social emotional learning and all of that. Being the leader was among the highest honors of my life. Sometimes I don't know how I got that job, but, and I used to stand up there and go, what am I doing? Why am I standing up here in front of these people? So it will remain always, very, very important to me, but it came at a high price. First of all, when we started that work, people weren't talking about social emotional learning and mental health. And because that was new language, not just in Mesquite, but really around the state, but for Mesquite, it was new. One of the things that I kind of had to realize was that if you're going to be a leader, you have to have pretty thick skin, because people are going to question you. And when you're in the front, everybody's a critic, right? I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm not very thick-skinned. I'm a little sensitive. And when you work in an environment, and I think this is part of the universal trauma, is all the environments kind of look this way now, which is the need outpaces the resource always.
Right.
And when you work in that environment where it is a high to critical need environment, with folks that have been under-resourced for generations, there's a lot of tragedy that comes with that. And so the stress of that and the stress of so I tried for a really long time to be tougher than I was, to be something I wasn't. And so not being authentic to myself and not following my heart, but trying to fit the mold, I guess, and then navigate all those really big things that were kind of thrust into a national spotlight at times, right? I remember standing in my living room and my heart was pounding in my chest. It was like 2017, 2018. And I thought, I'm killing myself. I'm literally killing myself. And I stayed in it until 2021. And the result of that was that my physical health and my mental health were pretty much shot because I wouldn't stop. I guess I probably could have gotten to that answer quicker, which is the answer is when you feel your body and your brain and your nervous system going, stop, you need to listen to that. I would not stop because I couldn't. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to stop, right? And it took me probably, it's 2025. I've been retired a year and a half. This is the best I've probably felt in 10 years. So the toll it takes is that it is never enough. Terrible things are going to happen. We cannot stop them. And no matter how hard you try, not everybody is going to like the way that you do X, Y, Z, right? But it shouldn't stop you from doing it.
And I think that concept of figuring out how to stop, even when you're still in the hurricane and the, madness of the job where the needs outpace the resources. Like, what does that look like? Like, what's the ideal that someone might begin to move toward when their external circumstances aren't slowing down to be at least in a different relationship with the madness?
I've given that a whole lot of thought because there's no other profession in the world outside of public education where you are expected to go above and beyond every single day, and your needs do not matter because we are here for these kids, and that's as it should be. Don't get me wrong. I don't debate that. But you're going to do it. You're going to sacrifice time with your families. You're going to do these things, and we're not going to pay you for it, by the way, because it's not in the budget, right? So you don't get paid for that. And you go into it going, this is a public service. This is, my grand mission or purpose in life. This is my calling, and so I'm going to do it. But burnout is real, and it is a problem. And I think where we're missing the boat or losing our way is we haven't figured out that balance, because there's either it's 4:00 and I'm done, and it doesn't matter what's happening, and that is not the way to do it. Or it's 8:00. I'm still at school. I'm still at work. I'm still doing this, and I'm killing myself, right? I'm working 60 hours a week and I'm killing myself. Somewhere in there is the middle, which is I'm going to do everything I can, but I'm going to know when I've given what I can give today, right? And I'm going to know that the best thing I can do for myself as a human and as a professional is this. I'm speaking to myself in this. I wish I'd said this to myself in 2017, is go home and be with your kids and your husband. Go home and take a breath. Go home and don't answer the text. Don't answer the email. Just don't, because it's never going to stop. The work is never going to stop. So you have to. You can't keep going waiting for the work to stop. You have to stop working for a little while and then go back to the work.
Yeah. That recharging. Nadia Boltz-Weber says, show me what is mine to do, and then give me the humility to rest, knowing that is enough. And I feel like you're speaking into that as well, sort of like that. And that's what our nervous systems need too, right? That's what they're designed for, that elevated and then rest, elevated rest, instead of just constant elevated. Then we have nothing left to give.
Right. And if I had listened to that, the way I showed up for work and for my colleagues and friends and for those kids would have been better if I had listened to that. So I love the idea that having the humility to do that, right? Your presence isn't so all important that you should never stop. Your presence is so important that you should know you can't be everything to everybody. That's not, and you're not, and you shouldn't try.
Yeah. Amazing. So you said something else that I kind of want to go back to. I would love for you to speak to this notion of being your authentic self and being congruent. You didn't use that word, but I heard it in your comments, and how those two things are also ways that you can kind of counter that exhaustion, the burnout, the heartache. Can you speak to that?
I think, yes, I can speak to that. I think I remember how anxious I used to be. Like, there were 2 solid years at work where I was anxious every single day. And mostly it was anxiety around, who am I supposed to be? Because I don't think I was the only counselor in the building. I don't think that who I am, I don't think they value it. I don't think so I'm going to try to be more like the rest of the people, or at least pay lip service to that. Right. And I did that as a leader. I did that as a professional for a long time. And I'll tell you, the thing that I go back to this, the thing I do very, very best is just be good to people. And if I had just stuck with that and just stuck with, let me love these people, let me be my sensitive self, it's okay, it hurt my feelings, we'll all move on, everything hurts Kim's feelings, it's okay, right? If I had just kind of stuck with that, I think I would have had more longevity in the job. And I think I would have, and I'm proud of the work that I did. I'm proud of the work that Mesquite is doing. They are amazing, right? They are an amazing district. Their leadership is amazing. Those counselors and their leadership continue to just inspire me. Can't say enough wonderful things about them. So I don't look back with regret on the work I did, but I say my work, the quality of my work would have been better, and I would have been able to do it longer had I taken better care of myself and just been true to myself and just said, like, I'm not good at calendaring, right? You see what I did with that? I made that a verb. But like email, I'm always going to have a million emails. That's just who I am. But, and I accept that. And I kind of got there late in my career. Like, this is who I am. This is what I'm good at. This is what I'm not. And I'm going to laugh at it. I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to capitalize on my strengths, and I'm going to quit beating myself up for not being perfect. Right.
Yeah. And, one of the things this podcast hopes to do is inspire people to care for themselves and each other differently before the crisis, before the health crisis, before the mental health crisis, before the job crisis.
Yeah.
And the way you're sharing, I feel like, invites people to really look at that. And one of the things that I hear is, I don't have time for that, or, that sounds great for so-and-so, but if you only knew what I'm dealing with, it's not an option for me. Like, there really is kind of a collective skewed narrative around this notion of, like, work hard, rest hard, instead of just work hard till you're in crisis and then, rest because you have no other choice. What would you say about folks who, because they're dealing with such serious issues and such serious work, they can't get their head around the case for self-care or community care?
Right. I say this to my clients and to people in my life that I love. Life will come for you. It comes for us all. It just does. That's just how it goes. And I think I have 2 kind of bents on this. To leaders, I say, don't weaponize taking care of yourself. Don't make it if you would just take better care of yourself, you would do a better job. That's not what that's about, right? And so I say that to leaders, but I also say that to professionals, to all professionals. Like, don't buy into this notion that if you're burnout somehow, it's just because you're just not doing all the things that you need to be doing. Because then that's just another vicious cycle of, like, well, if I was better at balance, if I was better, right? And so I say that piece. And then to the people who are dealing with literally life and death issues, I would say, I get it. I get it. There are absolutely, if you work in this world, there are things that you cannot walk away from in the moment, no matter what. Because we have to keep kids safe. We have to keep families safe. We have to follow the law. We have to do the things that our licenses and our certificates and our code of ethics and our morality and our place in humanity demands that we do to take care of folks.
Yes.
So I accept that there are things we absolutely cannot nor should we ever walk away from that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of stuff along the way that we can put down. Mm-hmm. And you have to be able, and I used to say this to counselors, professional judgment is about doing what you're supposed to do, but it's also about understanding that you have to live with whatever decisions you make. And so it's about your ethics, it's about the law, it's about liability, but it's also about what you can live with. And so I kind of look at that and I say, can I live with the fact that some paperwork didn't get done, or, that I didn't get all these things, these schedules finished, that, I only got into 4 classrooms instead of 6 this week. I can live with that. Can I live with missing a kid's outcry or not responding with the same presence that I would have had I not been so consumed by busyness? Mm-hmm. I don't know, right? Mm-hmm. And so to the people that say, I can't, there's so much on the line, I say you have to. There's so much on the line, because if you keep that pace up, you will miss something. Mm-hmm. And you don't want it to be the thing that you can't live with.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh
I don't know.
Gosh, so much wisdom in that. I feel like there's part of me wants to shut my mouth and just let that sink in for folks, because there's just so much nuance in what you just shared. What it made me think was, I've experienced this in my own life. I've seen it in teams. I've seen it across clients, just all over, this notion that we have a nervous system response that is matching a crisis moment. Like you said, you don't walk away from that. You lean mm-hmm. into your adrenaline and your overworking and all of that in the crisis moment. And then we feel like we have to sustain that level of amped mm-hmm. upness mm-hmm. once the crisis has passed.
Right.
For paperwork. So,
mm-hmm.
a suicidal child, our nervous system starts experiencing an email the same mm-hmm. way as we're not differentiating.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And I get it, because, and you alluded to this, the crises are coming so often and so fast that to train your nervous system to dial down in between mm-hmm. it's a real active process. It's not just mm-hmm. going to happen.
And just to kind of tag on to that, when we talk about dialing it down or dialing it back and life coming for us and things that we have to live with, like I'm going to share a memory I have of my son when he was 7 years old. And this is something that I have to live with. Now, I want to preface this by saying that my kids have a beautiful life. Oh, I just knocked a whole bunch of stuff off the table. Sorry. Edit that out, please. My kids have a beautiful life, and I'm proud of the mom that I am. But I'm not a perfect mom. And when my son was 7...
before you even share this story, I want to tell the listeners that one of my dreams is to come back as a child of Kem and Tom Edwards. So I agree and concur that your children have a beautiful life. Go on.
I mean, it's messy and spicy. Jen Hatmaker used to talk about precious families and spicy families. And when my kids were little, I was like, oh, we're a precious family. No, we're not. We're so spicy, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
There you go.
But when my son was 7 years old, and I was in the kitchen cooking dinner, I'd come home from work, and my nervous system said, answer every email. Mm-hmm. Your boss texts, you have to answer everything. And I was just going like this. And so I'm on my phone, I'm cooking, and I'm on my phone, and I'm emailing, I'm answering emails. And my son came into the kitchen, and I don't know how many times he said it, but I clued in that he had been saying, mommy, 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 mommy. And then on the last mommy, I heard him, but I watched him do this. Never mind. And he turned around and he was walking out of the kitchen. And I put my phone down, and you know what? That was like 10 years ago almost. And I carry that with me, not as a guilt, but as a reminder, right? I live with that. He came back. I don't even remember what it was, but in that moment, it hit me like, you have to stop, because this is not the only thing.
Mm-hmm.
You are a human, right? We talk about that all the time. Don't forget, you are a human being, and you are surrounded by other human beings who need you, who love you, who want your presence. And that is a part of you that you cannot shut off, because the need never stops.
Mm-hmm.
That is a part of you that you have to shut off, because the need will be there when you get back to it, and you'll do a better job with it.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to live with it. If you don't stop, you have to live with what you miss.
So good. And you know what? So relatable. I can't imagine there's anyone listening who hasn't had a moment like what you talked about, and it does pierce the heart, but so relatable.
Yeah.
Can I shift gears a bit?
Please shift away.
You're one of my favorite people to listen to related to trauma-informed work, because you talk about it in such an accessible way. So can you just explain what it means to be trauma-informed in a super accessible way?
I think the first thing is, I don't know. Can you ask me that question again?
Yes, of course. Yeah, because it was very weirdly phrased.
No.
Because I was trying to ask a question and submit a compliment at the same time, and so it probably came out a little jarbled. If you're explaining what it means to be trauma informed to someone who knows nothing, how do you make it sticky? How do you make it make sense?
I mean, I think the first thing is my favorite thing. Life will come for all of us, right? And trauma is a big buzzword right now. For the record, the first time I broached talking about trauma with staff, I was told we don't want to scare people. They'll think that you're talking about like a car accident or something. And so that's how far we've come in 10 years or so. We've gone from what people understand trauma to be to everybody talking about it, and everybody kind of owning, right, this is my traumatic experience. We have that universal trauma of COVID, right? We were all afraid. We all were uncertain. We didn't really know what the future held. We didn't really know what this was all going to look like. I think everybody thought when we closed school, it was going to be for a couple of weeks, right? Yeah. And when it dragged into 3 months, we all went, uh-oh, this is really big, and that's really scary.
Yeah.
And so when I talk about being trauma-informed, I say often to understand that all of us are shaped by our experiences and how we internalize those experiences and how they felt to us. And so, people they make fun of, well, trauma's relative. Everybody has trauma. But there's some truth to that, because we are individual humans. And so how we experience life, the good things, the bad things, the big events, the small things. And I'll tell you, the most nuanced, complicated trauma is not the big events. It is the neglect. It is the feeling invisible. It is the messages that we internalize about ourselves that impact our lives over and over and over again in all of our relationships. And so when I talk about being trauma informed, it's just understanding that we all carry some stuff with us. Life comes for us all. We carry some experiences, some memories, some beliefs about ourselves that impact our mental health, that impact our happiness, that impact our relationships. And so when we talk about that, it's not about knowing everybody's stuff. It's just knowing that everybody has stuff and understanding that we're all in this together. Like for me, being trauma-informed means holding space. We're a community, right? We're not going to build a house and live in the crisis. But we're certainly going to say, because you're a human being, you've been through some stuff, right? And you're going to bring that to school. You're going to bring it to work. We know it's okay for kids. They walk in the door with their lives on their back every single day. Well, so do the grown-ups.
Right.
Did that answer the question?
Yeah, for sure. When you were talking about COVID, Stephen Porges defines trauma as the chronic disruption of connection. Mm-hmm. So the whole world had a chronic disruption of connection that went on and on and on for months and maybe even years. Yeah, interesting. What's your favorite way that gets translated into difference making action? Like that it's not just heady, but it's like this is happening in classrooms and it makes a difference.
I mean, I think for me, I really love to say teachers have been putting trauma-informed practices in place for a long time and didn't even realize it, right? And by doing the things that we do as educators every day, so instead of looking at it as like, this is just another thing I have to do, look at it as it's a part of what I do. And so I love to just say, just do the things you do. Get to know your kids. Your number one thing that you can do to combat trauma is have a meaningful, mutual, authentic relationship. Safe relationships, that's the foundation on top of which we build everything else, right? Create a structure so that every day kids come in your class and they know what to expect. I always, and I'm not a rules person. People that know me know that about me. But what does the outside of the box thinking say kind of person? But having just some basic things in place, some processes of this is what you do when, and this is an expectation that I have, right? I think that creates such a sense of safety because kids need to know every day when they come to school what to expect because their lives are filled with chaos, right? Yeah. But also being authentic. I say this every time we talk. I say, a lot of educators will stand up in front of kids and say, I want you to trust me. And I like to kind of flip that and say, I want us to trust each other, right? I want us to respect each other because you give it and you get it. But if you just want it, you're not going to get it without giving something back. All relationships have to feel mutual if they're going to be real and they're going to be safe. And so when I talk about that, I talk about teachers do that anyway, right? They do that anyway. But as leaders in schools, that's the kind of environment we also need to create for the professionals who are walking in the door, right? If they know coming in what to expect and you're the same person every day, right? And there's an acknowledgement. Acknowledgement is soothing balm for the soul. There's an acknowledgement. This is hard sometimes, right? And I know you've got stuff going on. I don't even have to know what it is, but we all do, right? Just that acknowledgement and that's okay. And it's okay. Your best is your best every day. Just give it your best and be a professional, right? And we have to have some expectations that are clear around professionalism, but also hold space for the idea that humans struggle sometimes and that it's okay to struggle. And oh, by the way, here's a couple of things you can do. Like if a kid is struggling in class, let me show you a trick, right? I get frustrated with this too. This is hard for me too. Here's a trick I've learned, right? If that's in place for adults as well, to me, that trickles down. And so, I am big on connection, relationships are commerce to me. You can, if I love you and I trust you and I know that I'm safe with you, I will do anything for you, right? And I will perform better if I know you love me and I know that you care about me. If I know I'm getting on your nerves, I'm just going to try to disappear.
Yeah.
Right. So my favorite is relationship.
And just to state the obvious, you kind of did just then, but it links to academic performance. It precedes best learning. It doesn't take away from best learning.
No. And in fact, if you do these things, just like, being a good teacher, right? If I have a structure in my classroom and I'm present and I'm engaged and I'm prepared, but I also have a relationship with my kids, I'm going to enjoy them more and I'm going to do a better job and they're going to get more out of the lessons if I'm present for that. It's the same thing with all learning, which is that if it's safe and I have a relationship and I know that I'm cared about. That is so essential, right? I know that you care about me, and that you want to try to understand. You may not always, but you want to try to. Then I'm automatically more engaged with you.
Mm-hmm.
And what does engagement mean? It just means we're there, we're hearing, we're participating, right? And so we know we're going to learn more and retain more of what we learn.
Thank you. Do you have anything you wanted to make sure we talked about before I go into the rapid fire questions?
I think I've said the things that feel most important to me. I do want to note in regards to social emotional learning, because people talk about that so much as an integrated part of schools and instruction. And I want to say, yes, keep doing it. But I want to say, just understand that the foundation is always going to be that relationship, right? That drives everything. If you've got that, then you can start to build that awareness piece, right? And everything blooms from that. Resilience, empathy, going into their communities and their families and being healthier. Understand that you won't get anywhere with anybody if you don't have a relationship, a safe one, a mutual one, an authentic one in place.
Yeah. If you're not sure where to start, if you're not sure what might be making your efforts shaky, go back to that relationship. Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. You ready for some rapid fires?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm supposed to give like a one-word answer?
No, just whatever comes up. You don't have to edit yourself down. If there's more to say, go for it. Okay. The first one is, do you have a go-to song that gives you oxygen that educators need to add to their playlist?
Yes. Eminem, the 8 Mile song. I love, lose yourself in the music, the moment. You better never let it go. You only get one shot. I love Marshall Mathers.
Nice.
Yeah.
Mom's spaghetti. All right. I love it.
So, yeah. That's my go-to. That's my pump it up song.
I love it. Okay, good. What helps you reset that would surprise people who know you?
Laughter. I don't know if that would surprise people. But I love to laugh, especially at myself, because I'm a flibberty-gibbet. I'm clumsy. I have a great vocabulary, but man, sometimes I can say some of the funniest stuff that I don't mean to. So laughter is my best medicine. It truly is my best medicine. And my children.
You're married to the perfect person if laughter is your best medicine.
I am married, and I got to say, if you don't know Tom Edwards, you're missing out. He's the best, most compassionate, kind man with so much integrity. He is hilariously funny. So
I think he would probably do the same ode to you. I think y'all both have that on lock.
I hope so. He's pretty funny though. You should see him with the kids. And when Tom curses, it is a sight to behold. I'll do that off mic with you sometime. I'll show you what that looks like.
Yes, I'm here for that.
Yeah.
Do you have any daily or weekly rituals that you swear by?
I do. I started them. I've started them in retirement. I love my personal therapist told me this. You can do one of these 3 things every day. Just one of them. There's 3 things: 20 minutes of movement, 60 seconds of hugging. I love to hug. Nobody else in my life is really a hugger, but I love to hug. Or 3 minutes of mindful breathing. Choose any of those and it completes your stress cycle. My favorite is movement. And so I walk my dogs every day that I can.
Yeah.
And then I have started, I used to be, when I was young, a big reader. And then I kind of got away from that. And I take about 45 minutes a day and I just read like something popcorn, something, a bestseller. And just read and pet my dog. And I find that time just feeds my soul, so I would say like take a few minutes and do something that you love to do.
Yeah. Yes. And you can do it in those micro moments. I think sometimes people are dissuaded because they feel like they have to revamp their whole life, but really you can do Tell us those 3 things again. 20 minutes of movement.
20 minutes of movement. And sometimes it's cleaning your house. And sometimes it's pickleball. I play pickleball with my family, and it's highly competitive. I'm the best one. 20 minutes of movement, a 60-second hug. I love to make my kids do that, and they just get so, like, they're what do they call it? Cringy. I'm cringy. 60-second hug or 3 minutes of mindful breathing. And the mindful breathing, all that is really is just focusing on your breath. And you can think about anything you want to think about. I encourage you to kind of repeat it over and over again, right? But it can be whatever. It can, sometimes it's just thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, because I'm so thankful for the life I have. And sometimes it's,
F you, F you, F you, F you. Is that okay?
It does come out. Yeah. I heard a lady one time say that her meditation is Heineken, 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 Heineken. I don't like Heineken beer, but if you like it, go for it.
You do you.
Yeah.
And I love that you're also bringing in kind of the novels, like reading or doing anything just for pleasure, not for like self-improvement or, continuing ed. I think that's one thing we can all do in little bitty bites and not disrupt our full plates.
I mean, I recommend if you have Hulu that you watch an episode of MASH every night.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Ran from like 1973 to 81 or something. It ran in there. Tom and I like to say we fell in love over MASH. We have been watching MASH together for 20 years, and we still, it's in our rotation, and right now we're watching an episode every night. We never watch the finales of anything because we don't like to say goodbye.
Yes, no goodbyes. You don't have to anymore.
But a lot of these beautiful nuggets come from MASH, like best is best. You're doing the best you can, and that's the best you can do. But it's also really funny. So.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay. Yeah. Speaking of novels, our oldest, Maya, for Christmas, she got me a novel, and she got it as well. So the gift was the 2 books.
That's awesome.
And we're reading it together. And
just talking about it. And
we'll see. We have our first deadline today, which she imposed, and we'll see if we're moving. But I just loved the idea. It was so thoughtful and such a fun way to stay in relationship with your kids, to kind of
absolutely, especially when it's an older kid and they've picked something intentionally to spend time with you. How cool is that?
I know. I really loved it. I was super proud of her.
Yeah.
Okay. This is Chris's rapid fire question. I love it. She says, if you could etch a message on a stone tablet that would be found in 500 years, what would you say?
I don't want to be too cheesy, but
it's all right.
I mean, love changes everything. It changes everything.
Yeah.
It really is. It really is the answer. Kindness and love really are the answer to most of the global issues that we face. If we act with compassion and love and kindness, I mean, just think about how the world would change.
Yeah.
Just think about that.
And I would also put out there a little red flag warning to people that anything they're consuming, anything that's directing them away from a sense of connection, kindness, compassion, love, they should be really suspicious about.
Amen to that. Yeah.
And monitor how much gets in their ears that pulls them away from that center.
Wholeheartedly agree. I told my daughter the other day, there's a world watching and waiting to be angry about anything. And I say, don't engage.
Very powerful. I think that's a perfect note to end on. Your etched 500-year tablet. I'm shocked there wasn't a cuss word on your tablet. I feel like there's a second answer. We won't force you to go there on the air, but I know there's another tablet.
I mean, There's 2 or 3. I almost quoted Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Be excellent to each other. But also, there's one with an F word. Absolutely.
Okay, good. I'm glad I know you like I think I do.
Oh, you know. I'm
That's
just trying to be
awesome.
polite and not make Katie have to bleep me out a lot.
That's perfect. Thank you, Kim. Thank you for the work you do in the world and just for being your awesome self, your
Thank you.
awesome professional self, personal self, and the way those two integrate and ripple. So
Oh,
I'm
thank
so
you.
grateful to know you, and thanks for your time today.
Same, back at you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Katie Worden, producer of Oxygen for Educators. I want to spotlight our sponsor, TakiBox, a proven tool that reduces behavioral incidents in elementary schools by 66%. Through daily self-reflection, students build self-awareness, self-regulation, and meaningful connections. TakiBox is a light lift for teachers with a big impact on student well-being. Go to takibox.com to learn more and become a TakiBox campus.
Okay, we're back, and I'm anxious to hear what stood out to you, Chris.
Okay, I'm going to turn it back around on you. What do you think I'm going to say as the big comment? If there was one thing from her interview that I want to talk about right now, what do you think that it is?
I know, I already know, because you and she sing out of the same hymn book about love and kindness being the answer to big, heavy, scary issues.
I feel so seen. Thank you. As I look at my notes, it's like top at the top. Yes, to hear that said back to me authentically was, I can't even describe the feeling, because I do believe that. And she clearly so believes that. And it's something, we've been talking about Mr. Rogers this week, and as we prepare to potentially go to that conference. And I think I made the comment in our conversations that it can feel like an idealistic thing to say, and it can be received with a look of the label of naive, that you're naive for feeling that way. And so for her to boldly say that, I have to say she's a badass. I said it. Like, she's just remarkable. Tell me what your thoughts are around that. I want to hear you say what that means to you.
Yeah, I'm super over people minimizing that way of being in the world, or the whole like metaphorical head pat of like, oh, that's cute or that's sweet. No, it's so much more than that. And the urgency of the times we live in, I feel zero patience with that getting dismissed at this point. So I appreciated her saying it. I appreciate the way she lives into it. To me, she embodies it. I see that in every interaction I've ever witnessed her have, or everything about how she sees the world and interacts with the world. So it's not just, it's not fluffy, it's embodied. It's, it's, it's this reasonably simple concept that can easily be dismissed, but it's the most elevated version of how we meet this moment. Yeah.
And even for her to acknowledge that, like, she believes it so much that she openly said what she's best in the world at is loving people well.
Yeah. Yeah.
That takes courage.
That.
It takes courage to say that.
Yeah. That's what she's best at, and that's what's most valuable that she has to offer. Despite all her degrees, all her knowledge, all her training, she thinks what's most valuable is loving people well. Do you want to hear a funny story?
I do.
Patrick and I got married in 99, and on the bottom of our wedding program, the quote we used was, "If we leave a legacy, it's that we loved each other well." It's an Indigo
Oh, that
Girls
made me
song.
tear up.
Yeah. The best part is that it comes from an Indigo Girls song. It sounds like a really lofty quote, but it's really just their lyrics are lofty, but it's an Indigo Girls lyric. And I feel like Kim lives into that in every relationship she has you know, there's real
And
power in that.
understands that's what I was gonna say. She understands the power of it, and
Yeah.
I think that's rare
Yeah.
to
And she's
understand that that's a really
unapologetic.
powerful. Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
really powerful. And she I wonder why she's so unapologetic about it. Cause I think most people with the kind of credentials she has and the kind of experience she has would shy away from just stepping right into that and unapologetically. This is the medicine. This is the medicine. So, what do you think? Do you have any theories about why she's just so clear eyed about it?
I think she's done a lot of work on herself to
Mm.
know herself well.
Hmm.
And probably the first time she verbalized it, that might have been hard,
Yeah.
but it probably rang so true
Mm.
that it got easier to say,
Hmm.
maybe.
Yeah. I love that.
Because she clearly knows herself well. And to have said, and we can maybe talk about that now, but I was also blown away that she was so open with she didn't take care of herself.
Hmm.
And she did have to step away
Hmm.
because she didn't know what she knows now. Um, and for other educators to hear that, for I'm not an educator, for me to hear that
Yeah.
was really helpful.
Yeah.
Really helpful.
I thought so too. I wrote something down. She said, the how easy it is for us to get into the I can't stop. There's so much on the line. And her flip was you have to. There's so much on the line. It's like, man, right. There it is. Whew.
And how do you get that to be socially acceptable? Like that's
Mhm.
hard. It's hard. I mean,
Mhm.
I guess you keep having this conversation, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you keep hearing from people like Kim who illustrate it, who aren't afraid to say it. Um and the other thing that I think's happening and going to happen over the next years is it's going to get more uncomfortable not to than the discomfort of doing this work and figuring it out and getting into relationship with your nervous system. And, so much change only comes when it's more uncomfortable to stay the same. And I think most everyone I'm talking to right now is bumping against that edge of like, ooh, I got to do something different if I'm going to navigate our current reality with any kind of grace.
Well, and she talked about making relationship the priority, and it also is the relationship with yourself and making
Yeah.
sure, and she talked about mutual relationship, and
Yeah.
you can't hold up your end of the partnership or relationship with anyone unless you're showing up in a good space.
Yeah. Yeah. What did she say? Mutual, meaningful, authentic relationship.
Uh-huh.
Like that's it. And I loved the notion of like, if you're not sure what to do, that's what you do. You just go right back to that bedrock of the relationship.
It
And
also,
it includes ourselves. Sorry, I
yeah,
interrupted you, but
no, that's okay. I made a note about just the use of those words and prioritizing that relationship. And I just thought, gosh, could we just chunk the word social emotional learning, which has become so political, and just bring it back to that? It's
Mm-hmm.
just about relationship and making time for relationship in the school day and teaching the value of that.
Yeah, I loved when she pointed out that one of the things she tells educators is just do what you know to do.
Mhm.
You know, when she was talking about being trauma informed, it's what educators know to do. Get to know your kids. Be in relationship with your kids. Allow them to feel seen and known and understood. Allow them to see, know, and understand you. Yeah, it really does go back to that.
And from the vantage point of providing oxygen to educators, that's what we've heard in every interview does infuse the oxygen for educators is spending time with the kids and taking it back to the kids. And because
Yeah.
you're getting, I mean, it's a two-way street, it's an energy exchange. You're getting something from them too that allows you to show up.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what else I could not shake the entire time between when we talked to her and now? It
I
was
didn't
near the
talk to her, you did.
well, it's the royal we. Katie and I. Katie and I. Let me see if I can get a little royal handshake or hand wave going. Okay, now I'm distracted.
I'm sorry.
No, it's not your fault. It's my brain. Um, okay, so near the beginning of the interview, she talked about the young woman that she was meeting with and the relief the woman expressed, like I wrote it down, makes me feel so good for you to say that I'm okay. And when she said that, it landed in my body. It wasn't just something I heard, it really landed for me. And then as I thought about it over the week, I just kept getting this image of the entire body of educators across this country, counselors, administrators. Like I just kept getting this image of how healing it would be to be on the other side of someone like Kem Edwards looking you in the eye and just saying, it, you're okay. You're okay. And how desperately our nervous systems are collectively dysregulated and need that sort of acknowledgement. She used that word a lot, acknowledgement of how hard this has been. Best is best. She talked about that they're doing their best, and in all the ways that we feel isolated and untethered and unsure, that you're okay. I just kept getting that image over and over and just wishing for everyone in this country doing this work to feel that level of comfort that the woman in her office felt.
I think it's ironic. What I thought of when I listened to that, I did the very same thing 2 weeks ago when I went to therapy. I booked not 1 hours, but 2 hour session with the intention of being hypnotized so that Ellen could help me uncover what were the things that were wrong with me that I didn't know. And by the end of the first hour, she's like, "You don't need to be hypnotized. There's nothing wrong with you. You're in a good place." And I left feeling like, "Okay, all right. She's told me I'm good. I'm good."
Yeah,
Why do we need to hear that from someone else with credentials? But I felt the same way. And so
yeah,
I'm with you. I wish everybody had that because it did feel good. It did feel good. And I thought also when I heard that and realized I'm not just, the crazy party of one that needed that.
right.
Um, I she used COVID as an example of collective trauma and trauma that people have experienced. And I just thought, if we could all, it's almost an equalizer
Mhm.
when it comes to trauma because everybody
Mhm.
experienced it. So
Yeah.
everyone can understand what that means. because we all experience that in that context. Because I do think that I was listening to a podcast yesterday where a business person was being interviewed, and he was very much dismissing the concept of trauma and needing to work through different pieces of trauma. It was just more get over it. Like it was said on this podcast. And I was a little shocked, especially because the podcast host has a very different stance. So I was interested in how he would respond. But I thought a lot about, I wish Kim could do a lesson for everyone on trauma informed, and even just what she said in that short podcast about it being, experiences, and it doesn't have to be this major event. The complex trauma usually isn't. Like, that was interesting. And it just made me think that should be a mainstream understanding, not just something taught to educators. It should be taught to everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it can be done in the context of COVID because we all experienced it at this, for this spot of time. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, completely. And it's COVID and just the rapid way the world is changing. I mean, there's so many things happening right now that are putting people in that, am I okay? Are we okay? Space that makes people constrict and get fearful and angry and uh, us and them energy. It's all fear. It's all safety related, and all of that is trauma response. It's like you can see if you put on your trauma lens, like literally imagining yourself putting on glasses and look at people's behavior all day long, every day, in the collective and in individuals. There are so many people acting out of a sense of I'm in danger, real or perceived. And it makes me feel safer if I can name the enemy, or I can name the person that's putting me in danger, or the people that are putting me in danger, which just creates more sense of division and danger. And I mean, I'm getting esoteric. Even I can't follow my thread, but
I bet Ricardo can.
But Ricardo, he'll be like, I gotcha. But like I do think I understand the knee-jerk reaction of some people to feel frustrated that there's too much focus on trauma or understanding people's experience. I understand that reflex of like, could we just get on with it? Like this feels like self-indulgence or however they describe it. I get it. And I just think they could not be more wrong. And that feels to me like a fear reaction as well. If I dismiss it as valuable, then I don't have to look at myself. And there's no one in the world right now who isn't carrying, how Kim talks about the baggage from our experiences and how whatever we've been through creates baggage. And some people have little bags, some people have huge bags, but we all have stuff. And if someone is desperate to not look at their stuff because it's very scary to, a really natural thing to say is that's not real. Like that whole concept isn't real, or can we just get on with it? I feel the most compassion for some of those folks because it's like, oh, you don't feel safe enough to even acknowledge it's a thing, much less look at your own stuff.
And I also think not everybody's ready to look at their own stuff.
Yeah.
Hopefully they become that way.
Yeah.
But at the minimum, if you are thinking about baggage and people showing up with it, what she said was, if I heard her correctly, what she said was that helps you understand just people's actions. And
Mm-hmm.
to me, that helps with creating a world where we do treat each other kindly because we're
Mm-hmm.
offering understanding for there's something behind that behavior. Instead of just focusing
Yeah.
on that behavior, you're thinking about, okay, there's something behind that behavior. And it
Yeah.
lessens your reaction and your response when you think about it that way.
Right. I don't remember who coined the phrase, maybe Tina Payne Bryson, who, by the way, has a new book out all about the importance of play between parents and their kids. It's fantastic. Hopefully, people will grab it and read it. But I don't know if she started it or just popularized it, but the concept chasing the why, like uh, tr- treating people differently because you understand that there's something behind their behavior, their attitude, their actions, what have you, which kind of like what you're saying, seeing people in context. And you don't even have to understand what it is, just understanding that there might be something there that's complicating how someone is showing up yeah, it does create more generosity of spirit.
Treating them differently, meaning just allowing them a little more grace.
Yeah, that's what I was
Okay.
thinking. That's how I
Okay.
was thinking about it. Like just just even holding the question of what might be behind this with a kid, with a coworker, with ourselves is just so helpful. Is just just put a little space around it.
My dog is barking like crazy. Text a kid.
I'm enjoying it. It's very subtle
Can you hear
on
it?
this end. I can, but it's so subtle, and everything's better with a dog. So I'm
It made me
delighted.
laugh that Kim said, "My dogs may bark." I'm like, "Well, we have dogs that are part of this podcast, so that's okay."
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
oh, we've talked about so much that I had on here. I loved that. Oh, let me ask you a question because I think this would be helpful to talk about. Watching you two, it's funny because you guys have a different level of understanding of the work that so when you gave the example or Kim gave the example, I can't remember which one of you, of your nervous system not being able to dial down between dealing with the suicidal child to
Mhm.
the email that comes in next. That was like a given between the two of you that that's hard and you have to do work to get your nervous system to come down. But I was sitting here wanting y'all to give us instruction on, oh, how do you do that? How do you do that? So would you please give us instruction on how to do that?
Yeah, yeah. So, so a lot of people think that the goal is to get to this like calm, connected, safe ventral vagal nervous system state and stay there forever. That isn't the human experience, right? The human experience is that you get to know what that's like. And then you hopefully do what you can to stay there as much as possible, to know when you drop into a fight or flight or shut down, which is needed in some situations. Like if a child's in danger, you want that um, mobilized energy to come online. You don't want it to come online so strongly that your prefrontal cortex shuts down and you can't make decisions or be empathetic. You're just consumed with survival. But you do want the mobilized energy. So you don't want the full hijack of fight or flight, but you do want the mobilized energy that comes along with the sympathetic nervous system response. But our nervous systems aren't designed to stay there. They're designed to get activated to address the imminent issue and then drop back into that ventral vagal, safe and connected, calmer nervous system state. What happens when we've experienced a lot of trauma or crisis, or we've just gotten used to it, we can get stuck in that fight or flight or even the full shutdown mode. And that's that rigid nervous system is when you start seeing health issues and mental health issues and, quality of life, sleep, all the stuff. So the dream is that you get to know your nervous system. You get to know what it looks like when you have that more of the mobilized energy, and you allow for that when it's needed, and then you distinguish when it isn't, and you help your nervous system get back to baseline. So in that case, like maybe you're dealing with a crisis with a student and it is life or death. So you want the mobilized energy, you let it come, you let the adrenaline inform how you show up, all the things. And then when that passes, if you keep hyped up like that, you're in trouble long term. So you got to do the things that bring you back to center. Breathing.
Such as, okay.
She talked about reading every day, hanging out with her dog, laughing with her kids and husband, talking to a friend, spending time in nature. Everybody's nervous system is unique. So you got to find your things. Like, what are the things that help ground you? Just the awareness that you're driving this, like it's happening below the level of awareness, but you can actively be in relationship with what's happening in your nervous system. So, when you're amped up because you needed to be, then making a decision to then help your nervous system settle by doing the things that settle you. And then holding yourself accountable to really discern the differences between a real sign of danger or a perceived sign of danger. A real sign of danger, saber-toothed tiger, right? And that you do want to be in a fight or flight or shutdown. You want to get out of there or protect yourself in some way. But in modern day times, our nervous systems are having that same response when we get a snarky email or we read a news story from something happening across the world. Like we're trying to hold the entirety of the world, all the griefs, all the joys, and our nervous systems aren't designed for that. So we've got to become like actively discerning about what information am I going to let in? How am I going to pay attention to who my people are, and let my nervous system have full responses to their griefs and joys. But I can't have that same intensity around a news story because we cannot sustain it. So what ends up happening is we try, and then we disappear from our actual lives because we're trying to hold the griefs and the joys of the whole world. If that answers your question, I feel like I'm processing and monologuing at the same time.
No, it was great. It was great. What popped in my brain was I wish everybody had an Aura ring because I just think it's a very simple way to know what's happening from a stress standpoint in your body. And I think that they should give discounts to educators who want to purchase one.
Ooh, I love that.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I have to see what we can do about that.
I haven't checked to see, but at one point Headspace, the meditation app, was comping all educators. I think if my memory is serving, maybe we can do a little research and see who's doing what to support educators in that space.
Let's do that because I think respectfully for people who are novices at this, it's very helpful to have tools like that to make you aware. I think I've shared stories with you about decisions that I made. I didn't even realize certain relationships or were causing me internal stress. And I just thought, because I'm tough and I can deal with things, that I'm going to be just fine. And it resonated with me. Kim made that comment that she always pretended she was tougher than she really was and just kept going, kept going. And I share that, I understand what she meant. But having something that showed you what's happening, the data says just because you can doesn't mean you should. So I like having different tools to help you until you can recognize it and understand it on your own without the data.
Yeah, I love that. My go-to resource right now when I'm feeling dysregulated, and it's free, is Insight Timer. And I have one particular teacher that I just can't recommend. I've shared some with you and Katie. Her name is Sarah. I think she pronounces it Blunden, but it's spelled Blondin. And her meditations, I think, are like part meditation, part poetry. I mean, she strings words together in a way that is so lovely, and she has a good voice, and it doesn't matter. People should pick whoever they resonate with, but if people can find someone that listening to, and I don't always sit and meditate to her. I'll just put an AirPod in and putz around and do what I need to do, but I'm listening and listening, and I'm making an active choice to listen to something that calms my nervous system. And I've had many periods in my life when I was spending that exact same time listening to something that escalated my fear and worry and, um, a news or whatever. And can I read you a quote that I found recently?
Of course.
Related to that notion of, trying to listen to all the news and track everything and blah, 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 blah. From Kyle Cease. He said, looking at it over and over again is not going to change it, but it will keep you trapped. What you are trying to control is actually controlling you.
Mm.
And I don't know if that's true for everyone, but for me, a lot of the listening to everything, keeping up on the latest news, trying to it was an effort to control something I have no control over. And in fact, it was controlling me, and it was robbing me of my capacity to bring my nervous system back to baseline.
Mm-hmm. Kim commented on that when I can't remember, she talked about just the anger in the world, and her advice was don't engage.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is engaging when you are listening to it and putting yourself in the space, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I think so many people, like, one of the challenges of our time is how are you a force for good? How are you plugged in enough that you are making choices to improve the world, improve your community, improve your life, blah, 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 without plugging in so much that you get swallowed whole, or you get put into a fight or flight or shut down nervous system state where no creativity, no right action can flow from, because you're just consumed with survival at that point.
Do you think that more people live that way?
Consumed, just preoccupied with survival? Yeah, I think right now more people are making decisions from a survival state than a calm, connected ventral vagal nervous system. And we're seeing the fruit of it. Like, we're seeing what that looks like in the world.
Is that the underpinning of the lack of civility that we talk about often?
Yeah, it's fear-based. I think so much of it is fear-based. There's certainly a percentage of people that it's, recreational cruelty, but a lot of people are just s consumed by their own fear, and that's how it's showing up. In my opinion today at this time, like, I feel like everyone in terms of walking through a dark room with a little baby flashlight, but that's how it feels to me right now. What about
And
you?
so the I guess the best thing we can do as adults to change that or influence that is to work on our own nervous system.
That's what I think. I think the number one thing we can do is regulate our own nervous system, because if we are in that ventral vagal safe connected space more often, it's out of that space that empathy, compassion, curiosity, innovation, um, creativity, I might have already said that, like all of the things that move the world forward in a positive direction, they exist in that regulated nervous system state. When we get into that survival state, it's all constriction, fear, me and mine. It's all of the energy that pulls us backward. Now, the great news, I think so many people are paying attention to this now because of the intensity of the air and the situation. So, maybe we hit a tipping point at some moment, and everybody working on their own nervous system will contribute to a potential tipping point.
And then we could all be like Kem Edwards and be the best at loving each other.
There you go. There you go.
Love it. Love it. Anything else you
Same.
wanted to talk about?
No,
was fun.
I'm so grateful to Kim just for her wisdom and for the way she shows up in the world. And I hope people re-listen to her interview, because there's so many. It's like you could double click on almost everything she said and just sit with it. There's just so much in there.
I, Katie, oh, I assume we are. I assume we're posting the transcripts with the audio, but I would recommend printing this one, because that's typically what I do is print it and highlight different things I want to talk about. But the whole thing was highlighted, so I didn't do that today.
That's
But I would
awesome.
recommend that. Okay, I have one last question for you. Are we still going to be as close to friends if I'm successful in my mission to get to be Kem Edwards' best friend? Like, are we going to be
Oh,
okay for too long?
certainly. Yes, there's always room. Yes. The more
I
the
love it.
merrier.
I love it. I love it. And I hope I hope everybody gets to hear her personal story that I know I'm going to get to hear at the conference this summer.
Yeah,
There's a
Kim.
reason she's the human
Mhm.
that she is, and I'm excited to learn more and get to know her better.
Yeah, she is a great example of um right person, right time, right message. She has something so powerful to offer that the world needs right now. So hopefully people will find her, bring her in to do trainings. She does incredible trainings around trauma informed work, around understanding autism and supporting kids and families who have autism, um, and just really the mental health of the adults in the building. She has so many different amazing trainings. So hopefully people will just tap into her good work.
Well, and I don't know, she breezed over it so quickly, but she made the comment that she was the perfect client of counselors in the 80s,
Yeah.
but nobody talked to their counselor back then. So
Yeah.
that it just, I'm like, I want to know more.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
Anyway, well, thank you for bringing her on the podcast and putting her into mine and Ricardo's world. So
Hey,
glad
Ricardo.
to have gotten to listen to her. So yeah, thank you, my friend.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
That's it for today's episode of Oxygen for Educators. If you found value in this episode, consider sharing it with a colleague or friend. Please rate and subscribe so we can stay in conversation. And please let us hear from you if you have a suggestion for a topic or know of an educator we should interview. And thanks for all you do out there.